Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name's Chris Fletcher and I'm your host. Tech on Toast exists to connect hospitality to technology. Search for your best problem-solving tech on our marketplace, listen to both operators and tech experts on our podcast, or just meet up with the brilliant people who are helping innovate the hospitality industry as we enter a new era. Welcome to Tech on Toast. The Tech on Toast podcast is brought to you today by Point One. Point One offers the complete EPOS system for your hospitality business. From mobile order and pay and self-serve kiosks to restaurant and kitchen management, Point One has the solution. Head over to their website today to find out more and get in touch with their experienced team. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast. And this week we're joined by Travis Fish, Group Development Director at Ballie Ballerson. We were just discussing your new title. How's that?
That is, it's very interesting. It gives me a lot of remit to get involved in basically everything across the business.
So basically you're a control freak.
Yes.
Very good. And before we get into Ballie Ballerson, because that name alone, if people haven't heard of it who are listening, especially our American friends, they'll be like, what the hell is that? So we'll get there in a minute. But tell us a little bit about you and where you're from, what you've done.
So I started in hospitality at 18, kind of like most people who probably find themselves 20 years later still in the industry. I started working in a bar, never looked back. Turned out to be a student bar owned by M&B.
Nice.
Moved from that into being an area manager with them. Did it for 5 or 6 years, moved on to Nando's, and then really kind of got a little bit bored with being part of big companies, and I guess met someone, and we started a restaurant business. We did that for kind of 3 or 4 years in London, I've kind of moved from some of the larger hospitality businesses into some of the smaller ones. Kind of think I've got quite an interesting desire to be more involved in more parts.
You
of
like pain? Is that what it is?
Probably. And I guess I like tinkering with things, so I like being in a smaller business where you're more close to a lot of different parts of it. Had a brief 4-year foray into a tech business in the kind of HR tech space, which was super exciting, and I'm sure we'll touch on. Before joining Ballie Ballerson finally about a year ago. I actually met Wenny and George, who were the founders, about 5 years ago. And they didn't manage to snare me. They offered me a job back then. It's a fantastic business. Like when I was coming out of my time in tech, I was looking for a new sort of challenge, and I guess there was a few things that were really important to me. One was being super involved in a business, kind of at the top level, so probably looking for a smaller business, but also finding some awesome founders to work with. We are now Ballie Ballerson. We're rolling out a few sites.
Is that a pun? And you're sporting a Ballie sweatshirt there. Class of 23, love that. And if you haven't been to Ballie Ballerson and you don't live in London, you need to sell everything you own and get there. Tell us a little bit how Ballie Ballerson works and what is it?
Ballie Ballerson is, we're a ball pit cocktail bar, which is... It's not a real. It says on the website. It's not a real term. Like, we are a ball pit cocktail bar, and we say that as if everyone knows what that means. But Ballie is like a high energy cocktail bar. We happen to have a couple of glowing, very exciting ball pits that are surprisingly fun and not at all grimy.
Pre-alcohol or afterwards?
To be honest, any time of the day. Even I've been in the venue today. For a meeting, you can sit there with your laptop very easily. So we're a fun cocktail bar. And really what we're trying to do is kind of, I guess, break down some of those social barriers that exist when you're out in bars. Yep. You can't be that serious. You can't be strutting around, that in the kind of like negative connotations.
A ball pit is a leveller.
It very much is a leveller. The ball pit does act as a real leveller. So we are just a fun, easygoing cocktail bar. We've got one in London, in Shoreditch, and we've opened one in Edinburgh, and there's one opening in 2 weeks over in Cardiff.
Yay, I'm from Cardiff. So we will be... every time someone opens from London in Cardiff, of my connections, I try and go, So Flight Club we did.
Yeah.
But I have not rolled out the Ballie Ballerson yet.
You definitely...
I will literally be the talk of the town. However, my missus in a ball pit drunk doesn't sound great. Anyway, but you've got an interesting background, actually, because you... I've met a few people from M&B over the last few podcasts, weirdly. And... there's a real I think a high level of performance that comes out of that brand, and your journey then into Nando's. I think a lot of people who worked at Nando's in the era you were there were very successful and very good. Why was it a deliberate move into Nando's from M&B, or did M&B teach you something particularly you thought, actually, because you seem to be great business people. I don't know if you know a chap called Richard Fieldhouse. I've mentioned him before.
Yeah.
So Rich was one of my area managers at Carluccio's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he used to work for me, and but he was just like a born EHO. Like I remember him coming to my first site visit in a white coat, and I was like, "Are they taking me away?" And he was doing a kitchen inspection. So, yeah, but is M&B just what's the secret sauce?
Oh, what's the secret sauce? I think like both businesses were, you can imagine, like 15, 20 years ago, fantastic for me in terms of like learning the basics. Like I decided I loved hospitality and I loved service and all that kind of stuff that I guess is why people get into hospitality or get hooked. And I joined like the M&B grad scheme. I got to do so much around the business. Like I spent time obviously in ops, but also kind of HR, all of the different departments, finance, IT.
That's deliberate, is it? They encourage that, or is that?
Yeah. So I joined as part of one of their graduate scheme type things.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And we did all the different departments. I got to given the set of keys to an O'Neill's in Solihull to run for a few months. Wow. Like incredible investment in and like risk taking and opportunity.
Yeah.
Seeing I guess hopefully something in people and giving them real opportunity, which was fantastic. So I got a really good. Big company, process, why we do stuff, what's important, and just spending time with all those specialists. You spend 6 months with, an area manager in central London, and you really understand what they do in central London, and then I got to operate in different cities, different brands. That M&B was fantastic. For that real basis of what are all these brands? What are they all different? Why is that all? What are the different levers you pull in each brand? It was just a really good. Leveling place.
They seem every area manager or every senior person we took from that company, and when College was in growth, was brilliant. And Richard Hartley actually from S4 Labour was also ex-M&B.
Yeah.
It's a small world. Anyway, look, I totally digressed there because I was just when you said it reminded me that I've met a few people over the last few months on the podcast, and I just think they're also really outstanding people.
It was a really good time in hospitality. You think like 10, 15 years ago, like casual dining, especially that faster casual part. Like it was a good time. People were making money. There was lots of the public appetite.
Do you think we've forgotten what we did then? All the industry has forgotten, or do you think it's just different?
I think it's just different. Like it is different. Like the world. Yeah, that was back in those days. God, I can't believe I'm old enough to be saying back in those days.
Don't even get me started.
I read that was when M&B launched their first brand websites.
Yeah,
like there was no digital, there was no social.
I set really up old now.
The first Screen Pub's Facebook page. Like I set it up.
Wow.
And you think like how the world has changed in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think Ballie Ballerson actually is the other end of the spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably you look at where you were and what you were doing in your early career, and then you end up there. But that's a real reflection of where the industry is. I'm not saying everyone's got a ball pit, but that kind of experiential type dining.
Yeah, and being
night out.
Like we obviously, our demographic is, sub 30, kind of probably 85%.
I'm still coming.
Yeah. They still let me in. And, heavily female focused.
Still coming.
And actually, so what we're trying to what we need to do is our marketing, for example, is completely different now.
Yeah.
Like we are very much, generating like user content. That is, we're not doing, tens of thousands of pounds a month on paid ads. We're much more real. Like we've just hired our first TikTok content creator, which is not a job.
What a great job that is, though, for Ballie Ballerson as well.
I'm not sure it'd suit me, but
no, but for someone who knows what they're doing in that little space, right? The content you can create from your venues is insane.
Exactly.
Yeah, Whistlepunks, we did some work for them actually. They're similar, right? Throwing their axes around, and they're the same. They just live off TikTok. They try and reduce their budget just to live off UGC, and I think it works for them. It's an interesting way of doing it.
Much more natural as well. I think people these days, they don't want to be served an ad of why Ballie is great.
Authenticity is key, right?
100 people to tell them it definitely is.
Yeah. We've been. Look, I've got a ball in my ear. And you are very unique because you've done the ops thing. You've worked in all your different brands, but you also, as you mentioned, you called it a short stint. But 4 years isn't that short. And I'm intrigued to understand the differences between, because I've done it myself, but only for a very short time with Deliverect, the differences between being in a tech company versus a hospitality company. Are the differences? Is it still this? I know obviously your end product's different.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really different, and I definitely found it really different. Maybe not so much at the time when I was in it, but actually now looking back and maybe looking at some of the reasons why I went and why I left actually, or changed industries again. I think if I was going pros and cons, as someone who'd spent a lot of years in ops and hospitality in the UK, and that puts you in a certain little niche of what
I'm
you
just
do every
smiling because I know I'm knackered, basically.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Like I was working with people who knew things about things and thought in a way that I just had never experienced. And that really hasn't happened to me before. Like, I guess spending a big part of your career in one place.
Yeah.
You work with like-minded people. You've all got shared experiences. And I moved to an industry where people were talking about new things, and they just thought in a different way. And they were like, they were super smart, and I was like a sponge for learning. So I found it fascinating, and obviously learned about all of the things that I'd never had a concept of before. How software's built, databases, AI
literally
models.
how all ops are learning now, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to, but they're having to.
Yeah, but it was fascinating, and I guess like it definitely helped me to probably progress my own development in some of those areas that I would have not had as much exposure to, like logical thinking, process, some of the processes and systems. The way I try to approach stuff now feels a lot more like some of those sort of disciplines and ways.
I was going to say, is that what you've taken away? Because that's definitely what I took away. So they did like stuff like a sprint, and the way they manage information in iteration, I think is really key to being organised and structured.
Something that has always now stood with me is kind of the idea of like what we're doing needs to deliver value, and like if we've got a list of 100 things we could do, like, we should do the top valuable ones, and we probably shouldn't do the ones that are the
How
bottom.
weird that we never thought like that before.
Yeah, and I used to find it a bit frustrating because I'd be like, but this thing I know is really important, and I'm like, yes, but actually, if it's not applicable or it's not going to deliver enough value to the business, it's probably not worth our effort right now.
Yeah.
And that might change, and let's look at it again in a quarter or another quarter. So definitely try and approach, I guess, everything with a lot more kind of prioritization, and like, I guess, looking at what is the value that this piece of work or this thing or this project is going to deliver, and like, I guess also personally, I happened to make this move, without a huge amount of planning, but about a year before COVID.
Well
so
done.
Actually, it did work out very fortuitously for me.
Yeah, I bet it did.
I didn't have to.
She still qualified for furlough.
I wasn't furloughed. I worked the whole time. We were, working from home. I was in tech, kind of largely unharmed by the pandemic.
Wow.
From a career perspective or from a work perspective. So I feel
that is fortunate. Yeah.
If nothing else. But yeah, it was just fantastic. And, I definitely now, just because of that, have a lot more technical skills, even though I'd still say I'm not very technical. But yeah, I try to approach work in quite a different way.
It's quite systematic, isn't it, tech? I think it's obviously there's some very complex stuff which the developers do, which nobody wants to know about.
Yes.
Apart from them, they enjoy it.
Yeah.
But actually, the process that's followed, and what we briefly alluded to there, that is achievable by anyone or any organisation. It's just, I think it's very practiced. You asked me before how many podcasts I'd done. Asked me off air, and I think it's that 10,000 hour rule, isn't it? The more you do something over and over again, the better you get at it. I think that's something. I mean, you've said you've adopted it. Do you think that's something we could all learn from properly in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot that we all want to do or like to do, or just get asked to do, or someone knocks on our door and tries to sell us something that they want and interrupt our flow by messaging us or offering something that we like. But all this stuff distracts us. And I just think being able to really prioritise what you need to do or should be doing, or what is the most valuable work to be doing, and like say no to the rest of it, which product teams in tech are very good at, being like, we don't care about any of this stuff. Like, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, single. And there's a famous Steve Jobs quote about when the BlackBerry was coming. We're going back again, where the BlackBerry came out and he was building the iPod, and his team were pushing him to build the BlackBerry, and he said, no, all our resources need to go on the iPod. Otherwise, and then he said, if I hadn't have done that, the iPhone, etc., would never have existed, because I would have ended up in a different market. And it just shows those smart people at the top of those organisations are single-minded.
So I think like they were definitely all the pros. I guess I think reflecting back on it, there probably were some cons, and probably there are reasons why I've ended up back in hospitality. But I guess the reason I got into hospitality or stayed in hospitality was that I enjoyed the buzz of that end user interaction, and you just don't quite get that in tech. Like, even when you're delivering tech projects, to real people, to real users, you're not part of that team. You're a third party, and we did a rollout of the tech we were working on with the RAC. Like, it was a big deal for them. It was a huge, multi-year project.
Yeah.
I was there in the office at 2 a.m. with them when they were launching it, blah, 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 blah. But it's still not my thing. I'm not, like, really, seeing that. It's just not the same as, like, when you're serving someone or when you're kind of really at the coalface in hospitality. So I definitely missed that. And I think on the flip side, with, like, the teams that you have, I find something really purposeful about kind of the people that work in hospitality. I guess the people that end up in hospitality. You know, in the tech world, I guess like the starting point to entry is much higher. So people have been to uni often.
Yeah.
You know, they've got more experience before even joining companies, and actually, it's a little bit less fulfilling to me. To really,
I think the learning curve is different, right?
Yeah.
Think about it in hospitality, it's like, whoa,
yeah,
because like you say, you know nothing,
and you can enter with no skills.
Yeah.
And hospitality businesses then get the kind of this great opportunity to like teach people stuff, and then people say like, I want to do more, and they can give them a new job, and they can teach them more.
Yeah.
And you get to really like potentially change the course of people's lives. Like the person that first hired me in hospitality has fundamentally changed the direction my life may have gone. Like,
I love that.
And you don't get quite as much ability to do that in tech.
No, and I think that it's something they really obsessed with. Actually, I think hospitality tech really want to get an essence of that into their business, and they've been, you know, obviously they've been hiring ex-GMs, ex-area managers into their businesses to try and kind of live that. But I think you probably hit on the point that actually product-led businesses, without the experience at the end of it, is different. It's just a different selling.
It's just harder to get the same buzz.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh yeah, you know, so and so's bought my products and they like it. It's not quite the same as like, I don't know, smashing a really like great shift. You know, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, I can see the passion in you. It makes sense, and I think once you've been in it for a while, there is no. My son just started publicly. I put that on LinkedIn the other day. He just started on a food truck in Wales doing his bit, and he's only 16 for the summer, and absolutely came home the first shift thinking he was golden. You know, just said that was amazing, like literally, like, and it's not for everyone, but he absolutely loved it. You know, and you can just sit and I'm jealous. I'm genuinely looking at him going, I wish I could go back and have that much fun again.
You can get like a Saturday job.
my missus would literally, this is my Saturday job. And also, so when you're in, so you are like the operator come, what's the phrase, poacher came gamekeeper, whatever that thing is.
I guess so.
Yeah, that one. So you kind of go into tech. Is the shared language or your understanding of the industry, did it help? Is it RotaGeek you were
Yeah.
So did it really help? Could you sit there and sort of say, look, that's not the right approach for this, or you should be going in that way, or let me talk to them, I'll help you get it through.
Yeah, I think definitely from maybe bringing a bit of like understanding of the way, you know, especially like ops teams, like we would do a lot obviously of maybe even once someone's bought some software, like how do we then roll it out to, you know, 10,000 team members and, you know, 1,000 venues or units or restaurants or whatever. And I guess I think I can bridge quite a good gap there of like how might people have thought about this, or how might they need to learn this, or, you know, how much time might they realistically be spending on this, like before needing to use it. So yeah, I think definitely coming from that real understanding of like whether it, you know, I hadn't worked in retail before, but like, you know, retail or hospitality or whatever, and just being able to interact with those different sorts of people. Like it is different people. Like those different people in different industries will learn differently. They will talk differently.
Like you said it before, right? There's a certain type of person that gets that buzz in hospitality, and they are very different to the people who probably work on product, just so I think by nature.
Definitely in that way, when I was working for RotaGeek versus, I guess then when we're trying to like, interact with hospitality people or retail people, but also kind of now on the flip side, just going into, you know, buying tech.
Well, that's my next question. No, it's fine. And it makes sense because I'm like, now you're on the other side of the fence, I suppose, and you're kind of back in the hospo world. How do you feel when you're being sold to and you're being... Because I'm guessing once you put a director in your name anywhere on LinkedIn, you suddenly become a target.
Yeah, and I actually like it. I like cold calls. I like cold calls, and I like you know,
no, don't say that on this podcast. Really bad idea.
I think, like, you know, you don't know what you don't know, do you? So, like... It's
very true.
When someone comes and tries to sell us something, there might be a chance that it could be good. I got cold emailed about this crazy hologram technology recently, and like I'm definitely interested now. Like,
is that on your list of what's important and what's valuable?
It's not urgent, but it is important.
Yeah, because I want it.
Yeah, we have to keep the experience exciting. And so yeah, definitely as a buyer now, like I guess I feel pretty confident in evaluating those kind of different systems. But I'm also like I try and be a lot more self-serve. Like I will do my research and I'll probably contact the one or two companies that I think I'm going to work with, and I'm really not actually trying to learn that much. I want to go into a demo really, because you can't really see a demo without, you know, getting quite far down with companies sometimes. But yeah, like I will see one or two companies to get like the final bit that I want from them, rather than go and do, it's also so time consuming to spend, hours and hours on demos and discovery calls, trying to get to the point of being able to see pricing. Again, I know that is something that we were very protective of our pricing, but just getting to the point of being able to
Quite impatient though, aren't you? I mean, when I was an ops director, I'd be like, oh, how much? You just want to, literally my first question was, how much is it? And they'd be like, right, so anyway, let's arrange a meeting. And I said, no, I don't care. I don't want to have a meeting.
I need to know if I can broadly afford it.
Can I afford it first?
Or can I not?
Yeah. So I think I think you're right. That is a position with the tech guys that they actually want to protect that position, because obviously they can do a deal, right? Or they can nudge it here, nudge it there, and that makes sense for them. So it's that, again, it's where that never the twain shall meet in the middle bit. Where
and I guess also I'm clear, having seen kind of more modern HR tech that I was involved with, but also some older, less intuitive type, but maybe very enterprise ready sorts of technology, whatever that means. I guess I'm clear what I want from tech now. So no matter what I'm looking at buying, I want kind of, friendly support teams on live chat that answer me in a few minutes. I want integrations. I want largely to be able to set it up in a day if I smash out a lot of hours and just get it done.
Yeah.
I want no one to have to really receive loads of training. Don't want to pay loads of onboarding fees. I'm very clear on the type of business I want to work with. So I guess it makes it a bit easier to be who are my people to go talk to?
Yeah, but I think that's a really good takeaway from this podcast, actually, for anybody who's listening, operator-wise, especially the small to mid-market operators who don't have a CTO.
Yeah.
Kind of sit there and go, right, pan out your list of your... It's almost like trying to find a new boyfriend or girlfriend. Yeah. What do you like in someone? Make a list. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Going to a bar and going, hang on, sorry, point 4, you don't quite meet. But yeah, make a list of what will work for your business, and also understand your capacity, right? Because if you haven't got the capacity to onboard it with, you've got 20 people, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that myself, especially with your experience.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things actually that's changed quite a lot is when I used to look at technology, I would have a very fixed view on what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, well, it must do this, or the button is not where I'd expect it to be. That is bad. I now don't like this product. And we all have lots of ways of expecting things to work. And I think now, having you see a product, you're okay, this is not how it is. RotorGeek is not how everyone imagines rotoring software to be.
Yeah.
So now I will ask questions well, this is what I'm trying to do. How do I do that? Or how can it do that? Or what's the workaround to do that? And actually, we've just put Rotor Ready into our business literally last month, and I don't think we've had a single thing that we haven't been able to do that we wanted to do. It might not have been that there's a page or a button or a feature for it.
And is that done in the sales so I presume you work with Steve McGuigan potentially, yeah. So is that done with Steve prior to signing on the dotted line kind of thing?
At a top level, yes. But then, actually, the team that onboarded us and their live chat have been very patient with me recently. But, they've solved every one of my,
It's brilliant.
But I need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to do this, and, you need to find me a way. They have, and not in a crazy, doing custom development stuff. In so if we do this and we set up this automation, this will do it, which is really awesome.
And that's what you want, is it? Because it's that worry that people have, and we do tech audits for companies, and we go in and we do a free tech audit. And what we're noticing is actually, when it comes down to it, it's very small nuances in each different operator that they really want. So they kind of, like you said, tick the box, that works. However, in my business, in this city, I want to do it this way. And that's just me. Yeah. And that's just what I want.
And I'm not going to change my mind.
Yeah, and if you want the business, you're going to have to adapt. Yeah. And you, like me, understand that within the tech business, they're rolling their eyes going, oh my God, how much do we need this contract?
But it would actually be good, I think, if tech businesses sometimes were a bit more oh, well, here's the workaround. Or let me understand your problem. I'm going to come back with a way that hits some element of that objective, even if I can't do the whole thing.
Better than computer says no.
Yeah, because often you will, whether it's to maybe not to a salesperson, but to a customer success person or your onboarding specialist, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And you're okay, but that's a problem for me.
Because we both know they work off a dictionary of explanations, right? Because they're taking a lot of calls, they sit there and they tap in the problem and it gives them a list of solutions to those problems. And sometimes you need to escalate, or you need to find the person that can make those decisions, that can say, do you know what, if you want that report that doesn't quite do what we normally do, then we can make that happen.
But there should be there's normally a way, there's a workaround, there's a bit of creative thinking, and it's that's the kind of
but that discovery piece, I think, should be really important for the tech guys to get that out of you. I think in the sales process, not just sell you the product, actually find out why is he here, what does he want, and also what is the nuance with this business, what is the weird thing that's going to trip us up 4 months down the line when he says, oh, It doesn't do what I used to do with my old guys.
But it is hard. Like, just doing discovery, having done it myself, it's really hard to get out of people's minds how they actually mean things.
You've got to be in the business. I think you've got to go and stand in the business and physically, and not just a day, like do stuff with all the key stakeholders, go through their pain with them, go through their wins with them, and find out where you can get wins and losses. Because taking any tech out is going to cause a gap or a space somewhere that you didn't have before, but potentially fix something.
One of the problems though of having like sales teams very separate to customer success teams or for onboarding team, like there's definitely something you should be able to do in tech companies to bring those two teams, I don't know, more linked.
You're looking at him, but yeah, that's what we do. We literally sit in the middle, I suppose, and we help the operators get that nuance out and can do the discovery days and all that, and then really deliver that on a plate to the suppliers to a point saying, look, this is the real issue. Here is their visual tech stack that we've drawn that they want to do. So yeah, can you make it work? If not, you don't even get to speak to them. So it's an interesting process we're going through. And on a general note, how do you think tech is doing generally in the industry? You know, that's a really weird question, I suppose.
It is a
Can
really
you give it a grade?
If I was giving a grade for the amount of different hospitality tech that exists,
we're on A+.
Yeah, A+.
I mean, the hologram I didn't know about. I'll have to find out.
Hologram technology is amazing. I went to Elstree on Friday to see that.
It's definitely on the wrong list.
But look, hospitality technology has come a long, long way in the last 10 years, hasn't it? Like there is, I guess there are great solutions for nearly every problem now. It's quite disparate, or it's quite, there are not a lot of kind of aggregators, or, I think connection between all these systems is still not perfect. And integrations is probably the worst bit of tech companies, because they talk about things that don't exist yet, and they plan to do stuff, and they have best intentions. And I think it's kind of, there's loads of solutions, which is amazing, that didn't exist even 5 years ago.
Oh, I think the pandemic obviously trebled everything.
There's lots of things coming from other industries into hospitality, which again is good because they're like proven good solutions. I think that we would benefit from more things that talked to more other things well. Like I can click a button and connect them. And I think there's a lot of different solutions there are solutions for literally everything now, and some things kind of. Hospitality a lot on touch and feel and like intuition. And
where do you sit though? Do you sit in all in one place, or would you rather have best in class?
I sit best in class, but I want to be able to connect them.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? That has to be the ultimate goal for all these guys, because if they can't connect to the best in class, then they themselves are there, and they're not best in class, right? So if you are the best rota system in the country, then you should really integrate into every PARS, every online, whatever else.
I think it often comes along with like a different approach as a whole business. Like if you take a mission to solve the the payroll process problem in a hospitality industry, you are a whole different sort of like problem solving, knight in shining armor type character than if your whole business's mission is to own as many tech companies as you can and like aggregate them together into do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a different approach. And actually for me, like especially operating small business, like having many of those almost like similarly passionate small businesses.
Well, that's why I think you talked at the start about the drinking the Kool-Aid in the industry, right? You become obsessed with it, and you'll hear a lot of the tech guys that work with hospitality become the same, right? They suddenly like, God, at first these people were freaks, but now we really love them. They're like our people. And I think where we need to get to is where I think the mission thing is really important. I think that so there's a lot of brands coming from the States. So Toast have come over, Patronics have come over, and then there's I think One Dine are coming over as well. All these different guys starting to like appear from America, and I think they are all approaching with a community spirit right now. Red Cat from Australia as well. So there's different brands coming out, and they are very much community led and looking at how can we help the industry. And I actually think if you've got the budget to do it, that's the right play for hospitality, because I think you just said then, you want people like me.
Yeah, just want companies that want to come in and really solve a problem well, and be and like constantly make the product better as well. Like want people that are really coming in to improve it, rather than just kind of, I guess like tech of a long time ago was very much like just buy it and then you've got it, and like. Well,
there was no marketing, was there? There didn't need to be. We just had to have POS, and we had to have
some very basic bits of tech to make it work.
It was POS reservations and probably a back office food cost.
Yeah, exactly. And now there's Yeah, but I guess potentially there's almost the only negative maybe for the hospitality industry at the moment is there may be too many disparate systems. So you're like, oh, I've got my system for credit cards, which doesn't go into my lost property system, which doesn't go into my cloakroom system, which doesn't link back to my accounting system yet because it's too new to have that integrate. Like you can very easily get a million logins, and I guess end up making it harder for ops teams, and that's one of the things that is. Well, should I think always be on everyone's radar.
Yeah, I think it's that simplicity, isn't it? Being able to kind of just look at what you're. This is why we draw the tech stack for people, because we'll take all the suppliers out, park them on the right from it, just draw it, and then just sort of like get out of your head onto paper and say, look, how does it actually look like, and where's the flow, like the customer journey as well, and then go back to the market and go, right, who fits in this? Bit like how you described.
And actually, there probably is a point doing that, and I'll contradict myself now, which is that there probably is a point where you go, well, like we could have this system in here, but actually for simplicity, we're not going to. We're going to use this other one that's like second or third or fourth on the list of greatness, but actually. It's better to not add, another way of doing.
And I think you're having to redraw that, depending on your growth. You probably have to do that 2 or 3 times over your tech lifetime.
Yeah, definitely.
Because every time you change, or you want a new revenue stream or 2 new sites, things do change, right?
Yeah, and you might decide that you want best in class, order at table, and then you're like, but actually now if we're going to do loyalty and CRM and this, it'd be much better if they were all together in just one platform rather than. Like there are. That's right, constantly evaluating.
Yeah, and it's the problem. And when you're really small, it's really hard to make that final decision because you can't. Because you kind of just need to go with it. And I was talking to someone today about stock and POS. Should they be together? Should you always buy combined? So. I'll give Forth as example. Don't shout at me, anybody. But like Forth and back in the day, we'll go back in the day, and F&B. They were the 2 things, right? Your scheduling system and your stock system together because it made sense, right? Because everything kind of flowed into each other. But now you can buy separate and integrate it. But I suppose my concern would be as an operator now, are my PLUs correct? If I make a change on the POS, are they coming straight through? Is this 1 grammage change there? Then it should change because that's the kind of invisible shit you never know about.
And though I would say I'm a proponent of, like I've said, best in class and having integrations, it is something you're mindful of because you're like, I've connected, my rotor system and my pods. Like, great, they are now connected. But they're connected until I change something.
Yes.
And then I'm not getting a new revenue stream in. I've got to go back and remember how I connected them because there's no one, if you're in a business probably sub 10 sites.
Yeah. It's you.
It is me at the moment.
That didn't mean actually you, but it is you.
But that is a real thing where you're like, oh, well, that's why it's broken. Because I've not ticked that box now.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of like, I guess we're just accruing tech debt because we're kind of like, not.
I love that. That's going out.
Not like, we're not future proofing because we haven't got the resources to really manage it.
It's a big worry because I'm not saying, it's not saying operations people are stupid. I am an operations person. It's operations people's capacity to manage their people, their product, as in what they're trying to sell to their customer, plus this burgeoning thing that is tech. Because it really it does creep up on you, I think.
And it's future proof. Like future proofing is really hard, and I'm trying to get better at it. But even things like. So, we used to have a system where, once we hired a new person, we would obviously want to send them, a welcome email. Yeah. And so we'd want to send them, a handbook and blah, blah. Someone was doing that, So now we have automated that. So when they're hired and added to our road system, automatically they will get that email, which gives them all the relevant information they need for the start of their employment, no matter who they are. But then I'm like, oh, cool, so we've future-proofed that, or we've made it easy, we've made it automated, blah, blah. But, there's a few things in there that those things could change, and no one's going to know where that email comes from because that email just happens.
Oh my god!
So I'm like, at some point this email is going to be wrong, and no one else is going to know how to fix this. And I'm like, so it's just a bit of debt. I'm not going to solve it now because I don't have.
And you wonder how much, right? In I suppose 0 to 10 sites, how much tech they've actually bought and what they're actually getting return on compared to what they were sold. Often they've gone out to market with a problem. Salesperson said, I can fix your problem. I wonder how much of that actually is returning on what, because, and I really think if you don't land it properly, if you don't onboard it properly, like you talked about before, are you ever going to get the real, so the return is normally time, I think, most of this stuff.
Time, and it is. I guess the good thing, actually, lots of hospitality tech really affordable.
Yeah.
And so much of it is really sub £100 a month per site, which I know eats into everyone's margin.
You're talking about my own personal bills here. That's fine, Kerry. I'll let you another £30 a month.
In some ways, we've just found this new bit of tech, which is seems like it'll be fantastic. I can't tell you if it's great or not yet, but it seems like it'll be. It's for lost property. We get a lot of lost property, but it fully manages lost
Really?
property.
Not a surprise in your
I know.
face.
But actually, we reckon it'll take lost property from 8 hours a week per site to like 2.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's a nuanced problem that no one in the tech stack is going, we definitely need lost property in our tech stack here.
Yeah. But
who
actually,
needs that apart from you?
6 hours a week for 60 quid a month. Like, it's a big... The ROI is like, no-brainer.
And I think that's where, and you talked again about the value versus I want to do it versus you need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's an example, right? So it's straight away time in, but back in your
And that's like a really little one. I think for me, the biggest value piece of technology that I guess we've done recently is an ATS.
Right, okay.
We've gone from a completely manual methodology with lots of spreadsheets and individual logins and job posting and all the things that is not particularly easy, to working with a partner who is from having our career site all the way through now to onboarding that person to Rota Ready, digital contract.
Can you mention who they are?
Team Taylor.
Oh, okay.
It's the third time I've bought them.
Really?
Absolutely fantastic.
And that's really interesting as well, that no matter what business you go to, I think operators have a preferential tech stack in their own mind. It's almost like training. If you've had good training with a provider or good training with an individual even in your career, you'll always go, Jim Knight Hard Rock. Jim Knight Hard Rock was the best trainer I've ever been with, and I'll always back him up. And you take it with you everywhere you go.
And it also, what's interesting about it as a solution is it's not cheap. Like ATSs aren't particularly cheap, but actually the ability for us to like scale it at speed. We can add people. We're not hamstrung by it's like an extra £100 per user per month every time you need another manager on there. And it's like, no, we paid for a system. We've got an amazing, beautiful jobs page that we can create in half a day. Everything now, all the jobs are posted. Like, it's just fantastic. And we've just done our Cardiff team recruitment. We've had something like 1,200 applications. We've spent for 7 jobs, like 7 different roles.
There goes the Welsh, they all have a ball pin. We do.
They seem to so far. But we've done that with spending £500 on recruitment ads.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that's Team Taylor specifically's fault, but they've given us a great system, beautiful website, easy application process, and we've not had to go out to market for lots.
I think that's that piece, the kind of the big wow moment of plugging in and going, and you suddenly within a week, I suppose, you're saying, wow, this is a big difference.
And I'm no longer having to call every individual person. I can schedule meetings automatically. The team are immediately like, oh wow,
that's it. Any tech people listening, and there's a few, I would say get Ballie on a case study if that's you listening. But I would say that's what you're looking for. That moment where you're on board, and it doesn't have to take a week. I'm being petulant, but it could take 4 weeks, right? Whatever. But that moment of going, this is really sorted us out.
Yeah.
Even if it's moving from one provider to another and it's a big improvement, that's what they want, right? The operators want that seizure moment, like buying a new football player. Once he comes on the pitch, all right, he's quite good actually. He was worth the 300 million.
And it's hard. I think often you don't get it because it is very hard to implement technology to people, when they're busy, and so I think it is really hard to get it.
We're the worst industry to sell into.
We're lucky that we're small because actually it makes it easy. If I need to put something into science, I can go and see 3 general managers.
But you're committed to it though, aren't you?
Yeah.
You've made it your reason to be type thing. You're looking after it.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of technology change over the last 6 months now in order to get ready for Venue 3 and then Venue 4 next year.
And I think it is that moment, and I was talking about POS is only a problem and it's a problem when I was an operator. Yeah. I love my POS until it broke, and then I wanted to change it that day. And that's the problem these poor guys face, that actually there's mad people in operations it's broken.
Yeah.
Well, it was fine yesterday, but now today it's not. So now it needs to go. And I think it's that talking them off the ledge type mentality that has to happen. So, and I suppose going back to your career and going back to what you've done in your life so far, you've got a bit of a passion, obviously, for I think you call it tinkering.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people, I suppose, who are thinking of tinkering with their own food? Because there's a lot of people into food trucks. I just mentioned my son was working with a friend of mine. And there's a lot of people and they're looking beyond that into what they could do. You must have some good lessons, because you've done both ends, right?
Yeah, I've done both ends. And I did a bit of thinking about this question because I knew you were going to ask it beforehand. And I think there's lots of things, there's a million things that people could say or I could say. I think there was 3 that really stood out. And the first one was you got to make money.
Oh, amen.
And I know that sounds a little bit funny, but like ultimately the point of having a business or there being a business is that it needs to like, even if the point is only to make enough money to be able to support the people that run it and the people that are employed by it, like it needs to make some money to be an existing business. And like, I guess it's never gonna be exciting, or it's never gonna be acquired, or you're never gonna make any money out of it if it can't have a model that makes money.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to do a model of a business that makes money. Like,
but doing it
do
somewhat different
today of a business that will make money, but actually like having a plan that you can deliver that will deliver EBITDA consistently and grow over time is really hard, and it's a really hard question to ask yourself. Or does your business, And
I think people go through a year of that before they even look. And I'm not being disingenuous. I think genuinely people kind of head down, get into it, then a year in go, do you know what?
Because I guess people don't really, if you're the kind of person that actually, takes the leap to start your own business in the industry, often it's not to make money.
No, it requires bravery, right, and some madness.
But actually, like being really critical almost of yourself and like, how do I make? If my idea is burgers, whatever it is. Yeah. Like ball pit cocktail bars, like I also need a way for it to make money. Otherwise, there is no point being super passionate about ball pit cocktail bars. It has to also make money, and trying to do some of that thinking up front. And there's lots of, I guess we're quite lucky. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of levers that didn't exist maybe 10 years ago. People will pay for events, they will pay for packages, they'll pay for experiences,
get vouchers, whatever.
There's a lot of things they'll pay for now that maybe people didn't want to pay for a while ago. They'll prepay for stuff. There's lots of other almost like other bits to our arsenal that we can try and make use of. But I think actually, really boiling it down to like, will this business, or can I make this business make money, is a really hard lesson, especially if you're just a passionate.
Tech on Toast is pleased to announce that HRC Hotel, Restaurant and Catering is returning to London on the 25th to the 27th of March 2024 at the Excel. Discover game-changing trends, network with industry leaders and explore cutting-edge solutions that will elevate your business. Mark your calendars for an unforgettable experience at HRC, as this is where the future of hospitality unfolds. Don't miss out. To find out more, check out the website www.hrc.co.uk. Back to the chatting.
Passionate.
Well, Prime Minister must be, 10 years, I don't know, I forget how old they are. I used to work for them. And when I was there, I was probably year 4 or 5, I was there as the ops director. And I remember sitting with John, the owner, and we wrote the success model for Prime Minister 6 years in.
Yeah.
And then we literally, and it was depressing because we were going, oh my God. Some of the restaurants smash it, so they're fine. But these models on their own, without the luck of location or the luck of a great GM or the luck of, whatever it might be, great delivery in that particular location, they're not making money. So it becomes a scary thing. But it's actually a really, as you said, a great exercise, because you end up really looking at your business down the barrel of a gun and going, right, make some hard decisions based on that.
Especially if you're, still small, like, 1 or 2 or 3 sites, and you're like able to be like really looking at them and going, what do I do? And I guess it probably leads into my next point, which is like, figure out what you actually are, what you're doing and who you're doing it for. Like, it's so easy. And when we launched Bababoom, we were absolutely, I think, confused about what we were trying to do. Like, we were trying to be there for brunch. We were trying to serve the best brunch, but also then do it in like 12 minutes and give amazing service and have high quality coffee, but then also be open at 2 a.m. for, loaded fries and kebabs on Battersea Rise, which I don't think there's anyone at 2 a.m. on Battersea Rise trying to
you
buy
were.
kebabs. Well, I was there. And we were just trying to be all things to all people, like every time of day, every time slot, every level of cheap and high quality. And you can't do all the things. You can't have a 75% GP.
And it's exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really hard, and people get confused. And if people are confused, they tend not to visit you.
Yeah.
Trying to get really clear and not being afraid to be like, no, we do this. Like, we don't do kids, or we absolutely do kids, and just picking lanes. I think it's really easy to be terrified of being like, we don't
pigeonholed.
Yeah. But actually, people need to know what you are, otherwise they're not comfortable.
And I think you chase the dollar a bit, don't you? When you're new, you're kind of like, oh, we made some money in that. Let's just keep doing that. Oh, and we made some money doing that. And then you end up doing 12 different things making money, and actually none of them actually make money.
And actually, that's probably another point, which is that you will learn stuff like that probably is very subjective, and definitely don't make decisions based on all that. But also, people will tell you stuff. Like, we were sitting on the steps outside the restaurant on the first night we opened Bababoom, and someone had told there was 3 of us that started the business. Someone had told one of us that the too much bread, like the kebab is too much bread, and we should serve less bread. We should have half bread, not a full like flat bread.
Business decision.
And we were all sitting there going like, Yeah, we probably should. Like, this is obviously going to be the downfall of the business.
Straw poll of one. Let's do it.
If we serve a full bread, we will not be successful. And we very nearly just like cut half the bread off the menu, which I think would have been a crazy decision based on like one table or one person's feedback.
Yeah.
But it can be really hard to kind of ignore what feels like real feedback and real views. And yeah, so I think
it's a great point. It's a really good point.
Step out of some of that like subjectivity, which is really hard when you're in a business all the time with people all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably those kinds of things. I've already mentioned one, which is my other point, which was around like not letting yourself get rattled around, being super focused on what you need to do, and it's probably performance of my business, the people in my business. It's probably those two things, to be honest. Those are the only two things you should be doing, not whether someone's trying to sell you a new system for whatever by walking into your venue and trying to sell it you on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, that should be the stuff you say, thank you, and, really appreciate the effort, but...
Here's my calendar link.
Yeah, I am not interested.
Yeah.
Because actually it just defocuses you. And it can be exciting, but it's probably not right.
That's a brilliant. They're brilliant examples, and I think anybody who resonated with me. I'm sitting here thinking about all the businesses I've run or built over the past few years, especially when you're doing it on your own or with a group of people or whatever it might be. That knowing where you live is very difficult. Knowing where to play, as I call it, it's very hard, and it takes time. Some people are very lucky and they hit it straight away, right? But it's a hard thing to do. And what is the future? I'm looking at your Ballie t-shirt. What is the future like for Ballie? You mentioned you've just done Edinburgh, now Cardiff.
Yeah, we did Edinburgh last year, so it's just hit like month 13. Freshers Week next week in Edinburgh.
Ball pick galore.
Yes, exactly. 16 days till we open Cardiff.
Wow.
So really has come around super quick.
Do those locations feel like a deliberate focus? Are they university type cities with
Yeah, like Ballie is a real destination type place overall.
Really is.
All sorts of life's occasions happen in Ballie, and friends and all that kind of stuff.
Let's not even go there.
Probably best. But yeah, so like big tourist, students, event type cities, where there's concerts and sporting events. So yeah, Edinburgh, Cardiff, London, so kind of the three countries of the UK.
I'm just thinking
we've made multi-site hard, let's face it.
In my mind, I'm thinking of Ballie Ballerson on a match day in Cardiff. And when I say a match day, I'm talking about rugby.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's ever worked in Cardiff on a rugby day, which I have a lot.
Yeah.
You have no control.
Yeah.
The day just happens. You make loads of money, but it just happens.
It's going to be really exciting. So yeah, like we are, like I said, 16 days away from opening the next one. I guess hoping the future, hoping my future is very aligned with Ballie for the next few years, to be honest. I'm super excited about what we're doing. We will open another one next year, hopefully, and keep the growth kind of slowly from there as we become, I guess, a UK brand name for super fun nights out. That's really the goal. Really cool.
And if people are frequenting Edinburgh or Cardiff over the next couple of months, how do they get hold of you? I mean, how do they get hold? What's the website?
BallieBallerson.com.
Obviously. And if they want to contact you, someone might be looking for a job, and my mates in Cardiff listening.
Just message me on LinkedIn.
Or me at the weekend.
Yeah. As I said, I love a cold email. So my email address and phone number on my LinkedIn profile.
Wow. On your LinkedIn profile?
Yep.
You're a brave man. And you just encouraged everyone to do it. Look, really cool. Love having you down here today, and amongst all the kids are still off here, which is a joy. You've got kids, haven't you?
I have two.
Two. Where are they today?
They're at home.
Someone responsible for them? Or?
Yes. Yeah, my wife.
Okay, good. All right, well, congratulations on that, and congratulations on Edinburgh and Cardiff to soon come, and we will be there for sure. Tech on Toast will be there. That's it. That was Travis, everybody. Join us next week, and Travis, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.